Good afternoon. How are you? Thank you for being with us today. My name is Janet Stewart. I'm the host of CBC News at 6. Thank you for joining us today for this important discussion. And thank you, University of Winnipeg Global College, for putting this whole event on. Have you been enjoying the sessions? Yeah. Should we do this again sometime? Yeah, absolutely. I'm playing with the microphone here. The thing that I always say to people is, I'm Janet Stewart and I look taller on TV. You can tell by the size of this. It's true, I do. I was just chatting with our guest speaker today. I can't wait to hear from her. Her name is Monia Mazig. You know her. You've seen her on TV. She's had a lot of wonderful honors in the last couple of years. She's been recognized as a top newsmaker, as one of our top Canadians. Fantastic organizations have paid her great compliments. And you know what? She'd throw it all away in a second if she could take back a few extremely painful years for her family. This session that we're having today is called Taking a Stand. And Monia Mazig took a stand. And this was very much thrust upon her. Without her, her husband might have been lost. And we might not have some of the justice and healing that's now beginning. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Monia Mazig.
Well, thank you very much for this brief but very nice introduction. Dear guests, thank you for coming and for your interest in attending this session. I feel very honored today to be one of the guest speakers at the Human Rights Social Justice Conference. I would like, first of all, to thank all the organizers for their invitation. Also, I would like to thank all the participants for their interest and their attendance. When I came to Canada about 16 years ago, I knew that I was coming to a country where people were free and where each person's rights were respected. Over the past 4 years, I learned in a way that I could never have imagined just how precious and how fragile those rights and those freedoms truly are for all of us. 4 years ago, I learned that each of us must take responsibility for the protection of these rights, which most of us, unfortunately, take for granted. We cannot leave it up to others to do it for us. I realized that I could not allow my husband's fate or my own to be decided by others. I could not accept the way I was treated, and I could not be satisfied with partial answers or half measures. Now I take nothing for granted. For me, there was no choice. I believe that Canadians who value our freedom and rights must be engaged, take action now. If we fall short, or worse yet, fail to act when our rights are threatened, we risk becoming complicit in the perpetration of injustice. During the summer of 2002, I was with my 2 children and my husband in Tunisia. This is where I am from originally, at my parents' home. On September 25th, 2002, my husband, Maher Arar, took a taxi to the airport. He got a phone call from a previous colleague in the United States asking him to come and start a consultation project. He kissed us goodbye with the hope to see us back in a month time. We didn't know at that time that we would eventually be separated for more than a year. During that whole year, I didn't see him or talk to him. We spent 1 year of suffering and anxiety. During the same year, my definition to freedom, justice, solidarity evolved a lot. I realized that if a group of people believe in the same principles, like justice, like due process, they can work together and they can attend long strategy sessions. They can give hundreds of hours from their work or from their family to help for a common cause. I also realized that a group of dedicated people can make things change. As soon as I came back to Canada, I started meeting with some federal officials at the Department of Foreign Affairs. I attended several meetings over there with some expectation, but unfortunately, I always came back home with almost nothing. Within a short period of time, I became a single mother with all the challenges of that situation, but also with my objective to see justice being done to my husband. I wrote letters to ex-Prime Minister Jean Chrétien, to Foreign Affairs Minister, previous Foreign Affairs Minister Bill Graham, to my own MP, to the U.S. Ambassador, to the Solicitor General of Canada. I never accepted the answers that were given to me because I never accepted the injustice done to my husband, and I would never accept it to be done to anyone. With the help of some friends at that time, I organized some vigils around the Centennial Flame at the Parliament Hill in Ottawa. I took my children with me, who were 5 and 9 months at that time. We gathered around the flame and called on the Canadian government to help us bring Maher home. It was minus 20 degrees or less, and still a group of people that I didn't know gathered and shouted, "Bring Maher home." Some of them I know and some others not, but they came and spent 1 or 2 hours of their time because they believed in the same principle, justice and due process. Many times when I went back home and looked at my children and how they were growing up without their father, I felt I ought to continue the struggle. I didn't want them to grow up with bitterness in their heart. Simply, I couldn't accept that new reality that was imposed on me. My life changed. From a normal life built around usual tasks and emotions, I now faced new challenges, filled with new emotion and new challenges. I tried to convince people around me to listen to the wife of a suspected terrorist, and believe me, this is not something that you would like to do. It was a difficult challenge. Why not keep quiet and wait for days, months, and who knows, years for my husband to be released? At those very difficult moments, my faith, my family, and the encouragement I received from various people throughout Canada helped me tremendously to keep working and moving forwards. I remember that in February 2003, with the help of a friend, we launched a website, and Canadians from different parts of Canada sent me message of support. Gradually, I found myself working with people of different backgrounds who shared the same belief: every human being has the right to due process. I received hundreds of emails with letters being sent to the Prime Minister or to the Foreign Affairs Minister. One can ask today themselves, why do these people take 1 hour of their time to write a letter and copy me? I'm not going to offer any reward, and still they did. At some difficult times, I fell down, but I quickly recovered. I came to realize that this work must be done, even if it takes all the time in my life. And the minute I convinced myself of this, I felt so peaceful and so quiet, and I kept working without any pressure. It doesn't bother me at that time. Well, I mean, it did, in a way, to not see my husband, but it doesn't bother me as the very first month when the shock was so important. In October 2003, after spending 1 year and 10 days in prison, my husband, Maher Arar, was released from jail and came back to Canada. He suffered from torture. He suffered from mental distress. He was never charged with any crime by any country. Together, we faced another dilemma. Should he come back to his normal life, forget about his ordeal, and keep quiet, or should he speak about the injustice that happened to him? Now, maybe the answer seems to be obvious, but it is not really if you think about it. Asking for justice is not easy exercise when you have been labeled by anonymous sources as a terrorist. Demanding for its right is not an easy decision when you face a government that started to accept policy of secrecy and when to all the question the notion of national security will be raised. But with the help of some dedicated people, my husband decided to go public with his story and asked for a public inquiry. His story drew an immense public attention, but the government at that time refused to order the public inquiry. However, this did not stop our efforts to continue asking for a public inquiry. That finally happened when in February 2004, the government ordered a public inquiry. Now, this public inquiry is over. Justice O'Connor, the judge who conducted the inquiry, exonerated Maher Arar and came up with a list of recommendations to avoid the repetition of such a case. Now it is our challenge, all of us, to make sure that these recommendations are going to be implemented. This struggle between freedom and security is not going to stop when Maher Arar has been compensated. Finding the right balance is a question of survival in our democracy. This debate goes beyond my husband's case. It affects all of us. I would like to raise the case of security certificate because I always talk about that, but also because of yesterday's judgment by the Supreme Court of Canada saying that this is unconstitutional. We have here a very close case of injustice that was happening and still happening in front of us. And then where actions or position can make our action and our position can make a difference. However, looking for justice for these men who are being were detained for several years in Toronto and then moved to Kingston was not something that a lot of people heard of. These men have no right to due process. They are actually threatened to be deported towards torture. They have no right to due process. They cannot see the evidence against them, and their lawyers cannot even test the evidence in court. This is happening in Canada, and this is something that they were waiting for 5, 6, 7 years in detention to finally get the decision by the Supreme Court of Canada to say that this security certificate are unconstitutional. What kind of security are we speaking here? A security for the sake of security, or a security that strike a balance between our rights and freedom and our national security? Personally, I am against all these voices, and it is very concerning to see more and more voices, especially within some prominent members of the legal community, we heard that in the United States, justifying the use of torture or the use of light torture to extract information. Torture can never be justified. Which credibility are we going to have as a leader in human rights if we want to be called so, if we use or if we don't condemn torture? It is only by being vocal and persistent that we can set the example to other countries and that we can give our citizens a full protection and a true security. We shouldn't get scared to defend other people's rights and speak the truth. Terrorism should be denounced, yes. Killing of innocent civilians is not part of our values, but equally we should denounce the indefinite detention of prisoners in Guantanamo and here in Canada under those security certificates. We should be speaking out loud against the use of these security certificates. Why are we so silent? Is it the fear? Is it the lack of commitment? Or is it both? All what these people are asking is the right to a fair treatment and the right to due process. We should not let the fear take our rights from us. If people in South Africa were scared of speaking or intimidated, apartheid would be still in place. If I didn't speak, maybe my husband would be in prison today. Speaking is the only way to fight injustice. This is the only way to build our future. I personally believe that the security environment that has evolved in Canada since the event of 9/11 has damaged Canadian society by putting our national security needs and our desire to satisfy the security concern of the U.S. ahead of the liberties and rights that are guaranteed to us as Canadian citizens. We are in a free and democratic society, yet we have willingly damaged that very freedom and democracy in the pursuit of security. Unfortunately, this damage to our freedoms and liberties occurred with the willing support of many of our politicians who, in an understandable moment of panic just after 9/11, believed that Canada needed draconian anti-terrorism legislation to fight the terrorist threat that was facing us. I think it is about time to reassess the decisions that were made in haste. And I think very soon, next week, we will see how our parliamentarians are going to vote regarding the section of the anti-terrorism law, whether they are going to extend them or they are going to review them. When the Charters of Right and Freedom that is embedded in our Constitution was proclaimed in 1982, that was much hope that the right of individual Canadian or group of Canadian would no longer be subject to political whims or unilateral action by the government. That was the hope at that time. And I remember when the public inquiry that was launched by, and headed by Justice O'Connor regarding the case of my husband, I was reading some of the recommendations made by the MacDonald Commission, and that was done in the 80s. And it is amazing to see that some of these recommendations that was already made 20 years ago were not acted upon. And that bring us probably problems that we were not supposed to have, but still we had because we didn't act upon really rigorously on these recommendations. So there was hope when the Charters of Right and Freedom was proclaimed that this document would ensure that Canadians, regardless of their race, of their religion, of their ethnicity, would not be subjected to the kind of injustice that take place in many foreign countries, where mere suspicion condemns an individual to being arrested and held without charges, tortured, and in many cases, summarily executed. This hope almost vanished after the tragic events of 9/11. The world has completely changed in many aspects. On the positive sides, these events highlighted the need for increased security. As a response, governments worldwide have adopted measures to protect their borders. On the negative sides, people, especially people of Muslim background, or anyone who look like Muslim, or anyone with a dark skin, or anyone with a very Arab or Muslim names, is going to be a source of suspicion and is going to be interrogated, detained arbitrarily. The worst thing that happened is that the U.S. government exercised a lot and indirect direct and indirect pressure on other governments to modify their existing laws very rapidly in order to accommodate the new so-called war and terror. And here we have to stop. We have to examine all what happened since then and think whether we really, not to say whether we need these laws or not. I think a lot of these laws are needed to make us, first of all, feel secure, but we don't only need a feeling. I think we need also to find that balance. If we are going to be secure only and don't think about our rights and our freedom, then we are achieving a very selfish objective, because security cannot be achieved if we don't look outside our borders, if we don't look what are going to be the impact of these laws outside and even within our own borders. Under the name of this war, we can render suspected terrorists. And again, my husband was the victim of what Americans actually now call the extraordinary rendition, a vocabulary that, a word that was not part of the vocabulary of journalists, of legal members, but now that it is very much mentioned. So under the name of this war, we can render suspected terrorists to other countries to be tortured for the purpose of extracting information. Hence, bypassing our international obligation and treaties, such as the Geneva Convention that prohibits torture or sending people to countries where torture is commonplace. So what we are doing, we are kind of stripping a citizen from his rights and then putting him in a limbo, in a place where his rights have no value or are not going to have any meaning. Here at home, it took our parliament less than 3 months to adopt Bill C-36, which is the anti-terrorism legislation. Canada, and this happened despite clear warning from civil liberties and human rights organizations. Before I move further, let me state that our security concerns are real. Canadians need to be secure and feel secure. At the same time, we must preserve a balance. We must ensure that the government does not end up facilitating acts of injustice against Canadians in the process of protecting other Canadians. In democratic, compassionate societies like Canada, the very idea of torturing suspects detained by the state is abhorrent. It is unjustifiable and it is illegal. Despite this, during the past year, we have heard American politicians, member, as I said, of the legal community, as well as member of the public, call for the torture of terrorist suspects if this results in information. How can we consider torture as a legal tool and at the same time claim to be a civilized democracy? How can we consider using such method and then condemn human rights violation abroad? Again, those methods contravene the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. They would violate Canada's Charter right of freedom, but most importantly, they would demean all of us, all Canadians as human beings. We must not admit torture in our legal system. As I am standing here this evening, there are hundreds, thousands of human beings being tortured overseas at secret location under the disguise of national security. And we should not be intimidated. We should not be scared of speaking about that and raising our voice out loud and denounce this. The images that we have that were emerged last couple of years from the Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq, the revelation last year of the memo sent from the U.S. Justice Department to the U.S. Congress in which they allowed the use of torture against terrorist suspects lead us to conclude that what happened to Maher Arar and what is happening in many parts of the world is part of an organized and well-developed, well-defined plan set out after 9/11 by some senior members of the Bush administration, which they wanted to shift the focus on some probably internal problems, and increase the legalization of these procedures. Canada, as a country that is well known in promoting human rights, should make its voice loud and clear that this is not acceptable. Silence makes us complicit in what is happening abroad. It is our responsibility as well-informed and aware citizen to work for a secure world where human rights are respected. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Let me see if this mic's on. Can you turn this mic on for me? And this one too? I'm just going to sit. Monia, would you like to sit, or are you comfortable standing?
I'm okay.
Okay. Monia is happy to take some questions. If you have some questions for her, if you like, I can get the ball rolling, or I can even come down if you're shy. Would you like to get up to the microphone? Thank you very much.
I really admire you for your standing up for your rights.
Thank you.
It was it was physical, like for you, but for Aboriginal peoples in Cross Lake, in my community, when they want to speak out for themselves, they're ruled by political rule, cannot speak out. That's what we go through with our band council. And then when I want to talk about speaking out, you know, in some places I am told to shut up. Unfortunately, that happened this afternoon. Well, no, I wasn't told to shut up, but I wasn't allowed to speak any further on, you know, talking and speaking out. I wanted to ask a question about the UN Declaration of why indigenous people like me are not included in the United Nations Declaration. And this is the one of my endeavors to speak out for the indigenous peoples of Cross Lake and the imprisonment that you're talking about your husband. We have the same system imposed to us by federal policy. We have a reserve. It has a reserve number, and we have treaty numbers, and we cannot move out of that jurisdiction, that federal jurisdiction. And policies, contribution agreements tell our council do not speak out. And when we want to speak out for our rights, the injustice, the environmental devastation, the social impacts on the people, you know, we tend to have a block somewhere.
It takes tremendous courage, and certainly I know on reserve systems, and certainly in any communities, but I know this is true in many of our Aboriginal communities as well. You stand up and you're seen as a rebel rouser, someone who's bringing shame to the community, and you should just be quiet and not mess with the status quo. Monia, when you began speaking, did you have people in your community or tell you to be quiet?
Well, I can understand this concern, and I don't think I had people directly or explicitly saying that. Probably some of them were saying it behind me, but I didn't I didn't hear of it. But what I know is that there is an implicit or a tendency to keep quiet, especially if you are a Muslim and being labeled with terrorism. It's like a very bad disease, and you are ashamed of that, and people are going to look at you with different eyes. I don't know at that time what happened to me, or I don't know, but I felt that sometimes when you have a very strong shock in your life, you don't really care of all what the others are going to think about. And for me, it was a matter more like a survival. So when we reach this stage of thinking that, well, nothing is left for me. After all, I lost my husband. I mean, I'm not working. I have 2 kids. I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything. I was on social assistance at that time. And I was not belonging to any party. So for me, what's the matter? I am going to speak my mind. I am going to say whatever that people, whether they like to hear it or not, because after all, I know who is my husband. And now I look at it and I said, okay, and people come to me and said, you are very brave. And I said, oh, why? Why? I just spoke the truth. I just spoke what I really wanted to say. I think my how I was raised helped me in that. I was not intimidated. There is a strong current, or people, when they come from non-democratic country, are so afraid of speaking out loud. But I was not at all the same type of, I was not scared of doing this. So I understand there are pressures. I know that there are other families at that time who had their two sons, one of them is Abdul al-Malki and the other one is Abu al-Maati, and both of them were tortured in the same prison. I knew that later when my husband came. I knew that these people were tortured in the same prison, where my husband was. However, their family decided not to speak, and they were arrested before. So I was, I think, in a way, I tried to tell everyone that, if you are afraid, then that means that you are hiding something. If you are not afraid, if you are truthful, if you are innocent, if you are a abiding citizen, then you should speak and you should say the truth and you should not be ashamed of it. So this is what I decided to do. I think at that time some people tried to create doubt in my mind in a way, maybe, it's better to keep quiet and quiet diplomacy work. And, well, I would give a chance to quiet diplomacy. I believe in diplomacy, but when you see nothing happening, then you should sound the alarm. You should give the other party the chance to show their cards, to show their well-being, their good faith. But then if 1 month pass, 2 months pass, 3 months pass, and then nothing is happening, then you start thinking about another strategy. And I always thought this, I always wanted to believe in the good faith of others, but when I see nothing happening, then I change and I speak my mind. And thanks God, I didn't have any people pushing me back, and I don't regret taking that decision.
We have a line of people.
Yes,
people behind you, ma'am.
I just wanted, that was the question I wanted to ask. And the thing is, I think people around here should be more concerned about the environmental devastation caused by hydro developments, because we will run out of water and you will be affected in the future. And the future of our children won't look too good. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Just so we can hear as many questions as possible, I'll ask you to make your questions as brief as you possibly can. Ma'am, were you first in line there? Are you comfortable? Okay. Sir?
First, I'd like to say that I can empathize with the situation that you've endured to a certain extent, in that my family and I, although media, government aligned suppression was created an environment where none of you in this room have heard about this, have endured similar circumstances for the last 13 months. Having been profiled, attacked, then left in a pool of blood, kept in the United States of America illegally, no Miranda rights, interrogated by the FBI. And as I stand, I currently sleep with my door barricaded. I would like to say that I implore, I commend your courage in standing up for what is right in the face of tyranny, corruption, dissension, and hostility. And I commend your tenacity in enforcing ideology that has all been but forgotten in the current coming of age post 9/11. My question to you is as follows. As you're aware, your family had been represented in some degree post-effect by Senator Leahy. We have approached his office, and now Senator Leahy has spoken in admonishment of the actions that were committed against your family and the hideous and heinous violations therein. However, having approached his office, we've been summarily ignored. And again, we have met with many of the same frustrations that you have, having approached as many offices as you have listed of our own accord. We would like to ask you what, in your estimation, given the experiences that you've had, would be your best advice as far as empowering political response, direction, and social awareness and empathy towards our plight, as opposed to the media degradation that we've suffered. There has been false reports given, and they have been very few and far between, but the world has never heard the truth of the Aaron James story, as I have it up on the internet, profiled, attacked, left in a pool of blood, and abandoned by the American government and the Canadian government as a whole, left to die.
Your response, please.
Thank you for your question, and I really understand that it is not an easy thing to ask for your rights. And I learned through that ordeal of my husband is that, first of all, you have to be patient. For me, I was not, when my husband came back after a year, I thought that he's going to come back after maybe 20 years. I came to convince myself. So I convinced myself that things are going to be so hard and not easy to achieve a result right away. I didn't know how people work on my back, trying to throw my efforts. I knew that afterwards. And then if you don't know these things, then you keep working very hard and try to achieve your objective without necessarily looking for a quick resolution. And I think this thing helped me a lot. It became my raison de vivre. It became my my reason of being alive, right? So I wake up every morning. That was my job. I didn't work. That was. Second thing, very important, to have a group of supporters. Very important to have a network. Very important to go and, because alone, let's face it, we cannot do much. Maybe we can write letters, maybe we can have but we need to know, to have supporters. And we need to have maybe community groups with us, national group working with us. I remember I was, at that time, still in Tunisia. I found Amnesty International. And then slowly I started really being all the time in contact with them. And you know, when you write a letter to the Prime Minister, letter. It's not like when Amnesty International write a letter to the Prime Minister. So this is very important. I didn't have that strategy. It just came up one step after another. But now I look at that, what I have done, and then you can realize that there was a process. However, there is not a magical solution. There is not a magical recipe. If you do this and this and this, then necessarily I'm going to see my husband back. Maybe I was lucky. Maybe there was international circumstances that worked in my favor. Maybe there are, like my friend called that, divine intervention, right? There are a lot of things happening around us that are not going to add on slowly, and they are going to make a difference. Very important also to be patient and persistent. Persistence. We are not as much. We think that we are persistent, but we are not. We think that we are by writing 2 or 3, 4 letters, we are so much committed, but we are not. There are people who would write every day a letter. And if you get, I remember Foreign Affairs bureaucrat told me that this matter is really, really embarrassing them because they have to answer all these letters. And accountability is very important in our parliament, among our politicians. Unfortunately, also something very hard to get, but in my case it was in a way lucky, the media. The media are very important to get on your side. I don't know, again, by any through any process, why the media was not in my side, but at least was not against me. So that helped a lot to get that kind of, I would call sympathy, or at least neutrality from the media is a big success. And it was mentioned this morning, I cannot remember who said that, but we live in a world where unfortunately, our politician works with a headline. If there is a headline in the news, then there is an interest from our politician. If there is not, so who is going to, sorry to say that, who is going to care at that time about a suspected terrorist, right, who was arrested? However, the media brought this, to the attention of the politician. Not only brought it to that to their attention, but also keep it alive. So not only bring it to the attention, but how you can make it alive, because media will die 1 hour, 1 second from now, it's over. So this is also another challenge that we have to keep in mind, and it's going to help us a lot in achieving our seek for justice.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am?
Thank you for your informative answer.
Thanks.
My question is actually for the gathering. I wonder if it would be possible for each person here to contact their MP and to ask all of their email network to do in the next few days, to ask them to vote against the extension of the anti-terrorism legislation. I think the voices of all of us need to be heard if we're to respond to the story we've heard. And so I would ask everyone to commit themselves to contacting their MPs.
Well, that wouldn't take very long, and that could make a big difference.
Absolutely.
Yes.
My name is Abdurrahman Issa, and I'm very thankful to the people who organized this conference. And I'm very happy to see myself in the wave of Maher Arar, and thank you very much. And I think the only key that make you successful is because you speak English. A lot of Muslim wives don't speak English as you do, and that's very good. One more stuff is I work with youth, and so far we produced 2 docudramas about youth. 2 of them were screened in Winnipeg University, and I'm very thankful about that. I'm there, and director of photography. But today, because of seeing the way she was treated, I have a problem even myself. I came to Canada in 1990, and I came from Somalia. When I came to Canada, for me it was like an heaven. This is the end of my this is the start of my good opportunity, because I've seen same thing what lost the boys and girls they were talking about. They were happening and still happening in Africa. And my dream was to become an astronaut. Well, I was in ESL class when I saw an advertisement of a school that their advertisement, there was a rocket satellite taking off. And I said, oh, that's the place for me to go. I went to school, I wasn't. And then when I went to them, I was expecting that they will start from ESL and give me upgrading until I am ready to take the course I wanted. But right away, they took my test and they said, you are eligible. And then what happened is, the 2 years course, it took me 2.5 years. For that 2.5 years, I missed only 1 day, the class. For that reason, I missed the class was because my daughter was having a surgery. I ended up a 40,000 death, no job. This school have, there's an MB who wrote a letter about this school. And there's some media wrote about this school, the school of scandal. After this story came out, the school paid $7 billion to the Canadian government. And I asked a couple times to waive out my student loan because I never got a job. And this school paid back the government $7 million. And the government knew what they were doing. So far, I've written 3 letters, no success.
Are you looking for advice, sir, on how to handle this? What's your question?
I'm asking advice, and I'm asking the media to see all the information I have, and to get, as Maher Arar's wife said, the media is very good. And this, the problem I have is not only me who has. African youth, when they come to Canada, they end up jail and prison, and drugs.
Yeah.
And even the parents of immigrants, when they come here, because we come from, especially Africa, we don't know English. When we come here, it's very hard for us to get the best way to start our life in Canada.
It's a huge problem that we have to address, absolutely. Do you have a specific question, or is just you want us to all be aware of that and perhaps to talk to me later?
The information I have, whatever you can help me.
Let's chat afterwards if we can, absolutely. Ma'am?
Thanks for speaking today, and I wanted to ask you, as you're talking about the balance between security and freedoms and human liberties, do you think that that balance is best achieved by groups who lobby for human liberties on one side and groups who really lobby for tough security pushing together to find a balance, or do you think there's a more holistic way where in our government or in our society we can try and come to a consensus on what we as Canadians really want that balance to be? Thanks.
Thank you. I believe that first of all, I believe in education. I believe in education as a way to talk to people about, for example, Maher Arar case, but other people cases, like what happened to them. And this awareness will give the public, will start a debate. Because I think after 9/11, people were so much, first of all, under the shock how this happened and how did we allow, or how did our country allow such a thing happening, how our security laws allow such a thing happening. So the automatic answer after that was we need more security. However, I think it is time to reassess all that. Doesn't mean that we don't need security anymore. anymore. It doesn't mean that we are going to open our doors to all terrorists and tell them come in here. It's funny, I was reading the comments on the Globe and Mail. People post comments after the Supreme Court judgment, and we have a lot of Canadian complaining, oh, this judgment is going to allow more terrorists coming into the country. Well, I don't believe in that. I think people who would like to harm us, who would like to do that, we are not going to see them. And then something else, if you keep someone under the bars for 5 years, this security threats should be reassessed. Is the person going, it's not the same person that was 1 year that is going to be 2 years after, 5 years after, and 10 years after, right? So these things, how to strike the balance between human rights and between security, this is not up to the security group on one side to find it, or to the human right or civil liberties group is going to it's not up to them. I think the role, as I see it, should be helping us, all Canadian, in bringing different point of view. And it's up to us, citizen, to say, after hearing from different side, after talking to our legislators, to decide what do we need? What is the view of Canada that we would like to have? Do we need more freedom, or do we need more security? Are our laws enough, or should we tighten them more? How can we make sure that this case, like Arar, is not going to be repeated? How are we going to make that these indefinite detention happening here in Canada not available anymore, but still maybe replaced by a certain mechanism that would allow these people to challenge any evidence being said against them? So this is what really need. We need a debate. I think after 9/11, we shut off the debate. We just hide under our comfort. We wanted our security, and we didn't want to look at the consequences. I think it is right time to look at these consequences and see, what can we do with both, having both of them. We cannot have security if we don't have our rights respected. Yes.
Ammonia, thank you for coming to Winnipeg. We're very grateful to have the chance to see you in person. I know I speak for a lot of Canadians who feel that you and your husband, your family, have become icons of freedom in our households and, in my case, in my classrooms. I'm sorry that it's you, but on the other hand, if we had other people behaving differently, we wouldn't be having this discussion here, this very important discussion this afternoon. So I salute, like other people, your absolute breathtaking courage. You raised the issue of the media, in which I'm very interested. And my question to you is, having endured what you have, what advice can you give to media to encourage a more just treatment of these very delicate issues? Because I know that when Maher came home, when your husband came home, his suffering wasn't over, and the battle continued in the press as to whether or not he might be guilty. Mm-hmm. And that was very, very disturbing. And I wonder if you could just give advice to any media. Who's here, by the way, from the media?
They won't tell.
Well, hi, Janet. Public broadcasters, win again. We rock. Anyway, could you just give us some advice, and we'll pass it on, as to how we could do a better job of treating stories like yours?
Thank you. Well, that's a very good question, because I'm going to give you a story. What happened to me when my husband was in prison. One day I was contacted by a journalist, and he told me, "Can I have a picture of yours? You know, the one that it is circulating in all the national media with your daughter and you and the cake, a birthday cake. That was yeah, very. As I said, because the Time magazine is writing a piece about it. And I said, yes, I mean, for me, someone who called me and tell that Time magazine is writing a piece about your husband, that's very good. Again, it's very important to keep the case alive, and we need those things happening. So right away, I sent this picture to the journalist, and then I said also, I asked, can I also have a copy of the article once it is published? And I've been told, yes, you will get that. So after few, I think 1 or 2 weeks, nothing came. I didn't see anything. And then one of my friend told me, oh, did you see that? The Time magazine write an article, and that was about all the terrorists in Canada. And what happened is that they took the picture that I gave them and they cut only the picture of my husband, and they put it in there. And there was a small article about how Canada is a safe haven, because this is how the United States see Canada, or at least the propaganda would like to portray Canada as a safe haven for terrorists. And they listed different names, and my husband was one of them. And I was really sick of that. And I wrote to the editor, and I complained about that. And nothing happened. They didn't retract that. They didn't change that. And this is a way. Fortunately, this is one with other 2, 3, I would say 4 incidents that really made my life very hard. You mentioned also what happened when my husband came back, and we have these anonymous people talking through the media that, oh yeah, Maher Arar is a known terrorist, and we know this is not a virgin. This is how they said that. So, I think first of all, it depends if people are serious in taking the advice or not. We have to be here frank. Media is looking for what is going to make the news, and giving them moral lessons, or they are not going to listen to this. But I think what I can say is that try to be professional. Try to see how you are going to be judged, not for the today's scoop or for 1 week information, but how your name as a journalist or as a newspaper is going to be judged after 5, 10 years from now. Who is going to remember the scoop? Nobody. But who is going to remember the one who stand with the truth, who was professional? I think a lot of people among us will remember those names. So I think, there will be all the time people who are looking for sensationalism and are looking for quick gain, no matter what we tell them, no matter the ethical lecture that we are going to give, it's not going to change. However, my advice or my comments are going to be addressed to the one who are already, I think, professional. And I think by being objective, I wouldn't say, come with my side, at least by being objective and reporting the facts. I think this is a big challenge in nowadays, because the power change, and we are all, some journalists are intimidated maybe by their editors. They cannot speak their mind, they cannot say whatever they really want, and it is not easy for them. However, I think they should not try to be famous by circulating these anonymous things, because maybe there is a gain out of there, but the damage they can do for a personal being, the damage they did to me, the damage they did to my husband, is something that is immeasurable. That it is, maybe. They won't feel it now, but as I said, after 5-10 years, when they think about their career, what they have achieved, then they will figure out that these are not the right path to follow. So I think, just to wrap up, be objective, be ethical, and be professional, and be accountable. Think that you are informing the citizen, so you are not just looking for your career or for how you are going to advance or how people are going to see you after one day or two.
I have, let's clap for that. One last question, and then we'll give everyone time to get to their next sessions. Okay, bye now. Monia, thank you for everything. My question for you, if you care to listen, is you're a mother of 2 small kids. What do you tell them about what happened to your family and what about their country?
My son was 9 months, 8-9 months when his father was arrested. He's 5 years now. As my husband mentioned that last time, he said that when there was the public inquiry, my son thought that my husband works at the public inquiry. So he thought that his father worked there. Just to tell you how this thing took upon our lives. My daughter is 10 years. She was 5, so she is more aware. But let me share something with you. I found this amazing. 2 days ago, they started talking about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And it's just like she's in grade 5, and they were trying to sensibilize the kids about the different rights, and every child was asked to take a right to study. So one is right to food, right to shelter, and my daughter chose the right to be treated equally and fairly by law. And I don't know if this is psychologically a reflection or of what she has been through, but I'm so glad that she picked up this.
Thank you all very much for coming. Monia, thank you so much for sharing your story.